All right, let's dive into one of the most bizarre, debated, and frankly, just plain weird passages in the entire Bible. We're talking about the very beginning of Genesis, chapter 6. It's a story that has fueled all kinds of speculation for centuries. The mystery really boils down to this one single wild question. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel, right? But it's right there in the text. So what on earth is going on here? Let's dig in. So, yeah, that's the passage that starts it all. You have these mysterious sons of God, you have human women, and then you have their children called the Nephilim, which a lot of people translate as giants. And they're described as these ancient, famous heroes. It's a super short passage, but man, it packs a ton of mystery.
Okay, so with any mystery, you got to start by figuring out who the key players are. And in this story, how you interpret the whole thing really hinges on the identity of one specific group. This is the million-dollar question. If we can just figure out who these sons of God are supposed to be, the rest of the puzzle starts to fall into place. And historically, there have been three main theories. So here are the main suspects. The first one, and probably the most popular, is that these were fallen angels. The second theory is that they were human, specifically the good guys, the righteous descendants of Adam's son Seth. And the third idea is that they were just powerful human kings, acting like they were gods. Now, that fallen angels theory is really well known, but the author of our source material makes a really strong case for the Sethite view. They argue that it just fits better with what's happening right before it in Genesis. I mean, the book just spent 2 whole chapters contrasting the violent, corrupt line of Cain with the godly line of Seth. So from that perspective, this story isn't about angels, it's about the godly branch of humanity just giving up and blurring the lines God had set up. But the argument from our source goes way deeper than just identifying characters. See, the biggest clue isn't just in the words themselves, it's in how the words are arranged. There's a hidden pattern in the text. It's a literary device, and it's called a chiasm. Now that sounds fancy, but think of it like a poetic mirror, or maybe a sandwich. The first half of a passage reflects the second half in reverse order. It's a technique ancient writers used to put a spotlight on the central point, and the analysis here suggests Genesis 6 is a perfect example. Check out how this works. The passage builds up to a central point, which is God's judgment, and then it mirrors itself on the way out. It starts with the sons of God taking wives, and it ends with the result of that action, the mighty men. The real genius of this structure, according to the author, is how it shows the union continuing after God's judgment. It shows that God issues a warning, but humanity, they just blow right past it and keep going. So once you see that structure, you start to realize, whoa, this story isn't some random, isolated event. It's actually the climax of a pattern of sin that's been building since the very beginning of Genesis. This isn't the first time humanity has gotten into trouble this way. Not even close. The point being made is that this is the third major rebellion, and it follows the exact same disastrous formula as Adam and Eve in the garden and Cain with his brother Abel. You can see the cycle so clearly here. In each story, it all starts with sight. Eve saw the fruit was desirable. The sons of God saw the women were beautiful. This leads directly to the action of taking what they wanted, completely ignoring God's boundaries. And every single time, this pattern of seeing and taking leads to disaster. Okay, so we've established this pattern of sin. What's the final verdict in this case? What's the consequence for this widespread rebellion? God's response is direct. It's crystal clear. He declares that humanity's days are now going to be numbered to 120 years. But what does that number actually mean? So the analysis in our source suggests this is not a 120-year countdown to the Great Flood, which is a common interpretation. Instead, it's God setting a new firm limit on the human lifespan. Remember, in the chapter just before this, people were living for over 900 years. So this is a huge reduction. It's a judgment, for sure, but it's also a sign of patience. God is limiting their time to do evil, not just wiping them out on the spot. And here's the kicker. This is the crucial point. Remember that chiastic structure, that mirror pattern? God lays down this judgment, this new rule for humanity. And what happens next? They completely ignore it. The text says the union continued also afterward. Humanity hears the verdict and just carries on as if nothing happened, openly despising God's word. So where does all this leave us? According to the author, the story isn't ultimately about giants or angels at all. It's actually a key part of a much larger story with a really profound theological point. To kind of sum up this whole interpretation, this story is the peak of humanity's early rebellion. They take one of God's blessings, to be fruitful and multiply, and they twist it into something selfish. God responds with a judgment that is also a form of grace, but humanity's defiance only gets worse.
This is the final, powerful insight from our source. This whole cycle of rebellion, grace, and then more rebellion isn't just a depressing story. It's meant to reveal something fundamental about God's character. A love so persistent, even when it's rejected, that from a human point of view, it almost seems foolish. The author actually uses a specific Korean term for this, babu sarang. It translates to foolish love. It's the kind of love that keeps giving, keeps offering second chances, and keeps pursuing people who want nothing to do with it. It's a love that seems totally illogical because it sacrifices itself for those who despise it. And so, this bizarre ancient story about giants leaves us with a profound and timeless question. It pushes us past the mystery of the Nephilim to ask something way more personal. Why would a creator show this kind of foolish love, continually offering grace to a creation that so often and so consistently just throws it back in his face? That's the real mystery this passage asks us to think about.